So no matter what flood zone you're in, they are requiring you to carry flood insurance now. So they're phasing it in, I believe 2024 through 2027.
So today we're going to talk about Florida home insurance rate increases that we've seen here in 2023. And no better person to have back on here is Leah from Brightway Insurance. Hey, Leah, how are you?
Hey, Greg, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me back. It's good to be back here.
Yes, we did this, a year ago after Hurricane, not Ian. Ian?
I think it was, yeah.
It was Ian. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we did it last time. We were very focused heavily on Ian because of all what was going on in Southwest Florida at the time. And since then, after the great migration here to Florida, I was getting a ton of calls from this channel for people relocating to Northeast Florida, the Jacksonville region and St. Augustine region from all over the country. But as of lately, believe it or not, I'm getting a lot of calls from people from South Florida wanting to move up to this area. And the first question I always ask people is, why the move? Because I migrated from South Florida, and I'm just curious because it's been a while, 4 or 5 years. And normally the number one reason I'm getting is because of home insurance.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yes. So the reason I wanted to jump on a call today, and I want to let all the viewers out there know that if you stick around to the end, we are going to actually go over a quote of a home here in Ponte Vedra in St. Johns County that Leah was kind enough to give me a quote on so that we can actually go over the numbers and really understand home insurance here in this neck of the woods. But again, doing the Google searches and everything, everybody's asking, are there any new insurance laws, home insurance laws that we don't know about that maybe we need to bring up?
So really since, Hurricane Ian has definitely changed and affected insurance greatly here in Florida, really across the board for both home and auto insurance. So basically what has happened is a lot of, folks, especially they're probably more familiar with Citizens, down in South Florida. So Citizens is, the state-based insurance company here in Florida, and a lot of the new laws about insurance have actually come from them and just trying to regulate, because they're really not there to be like the first choice. They're kind of like the last resort, of course, where if the price is too high or there's just no other options, and that's where we're going. So what was happening is they were becoming the first choice because of price, because it's just become insanely expensive. And, especially in South Florida, there's not a lot of carriers that want to be insuring down there. So that's where we're going. So basically what has happened is there's new laws around basically being able to be eligible as Citizens. So right now, if there is another offer that's within 20% of what the Citizens premium is, then you cannot be eligible for Citizens. So say, your premium with them is $1,800 and there's another offer in the market for $2,100. Citizens is going to drop you, and you'll have to be moved over to that other carrier because they're trying to, of course, just they don't want to be insuring people. So that's what we've noticed. So that's a big one that we're getting calls on, because people are getting these letters saying, hey, like, you're being removed from Citizens. So that's something we've seen. Now, what is also happening with them starting 2024 is no matter what flood zone you're in, so AE or X, which X is, basically the lower risk flood zone here in Florida. So no matter what flood zone you're in, they are requiring you to carry flood insurance now. So they're phasing it in, I believe 2024 through 2027. It's based on your dwelling coverage. So I think they're starting at the higher values. So the high value homes, and you're talking 500, 600,000 in coverage, they're being required first to start carrying flood insurance. So that's what we're seeing as well. So they're definitely trying to make it harder to become insured with Citizens. But I think that's necessary for the market that we're in right now, just to help private carriers become more of an option and not everybody just running to Citizens. But I would say that those are definitely the new laws that we're seeing with them for sure this year.
Yeah. So just for those that don't know, Citizens is government backed, correct?
It is, yes.
And people used to be able to fall back on them, but they have to reduce their exposure now because somebody has to pay for all these damages after every storm here in Florida. But the big one I wasn't really aware of that you brought to my attention was, so flood zone X, usually you have the option to have flood insurance or not. And so now basically they're trying to change those rules, trying to motivate and encourage people to get flood insurance, because I think specifically in Ian in the Fort Myers area, a lot of people had insurance coverage for the home, but they did not have flood insurance. And so from what I understood, they were fighting with claims departments of insurance companies, and the insurance companies were saying, look, the actual hurricane storm that you were insured for is not what damaged your home. It was the storm surge from the home and the flooding that got to your home first. Therefore, you're not covered since you did not have flood insurance. So I'm assuming that is the encouragement for those to go ahead and get flood insurance, which I always recommend to get flood insurance. We're in Florida. And so I think today, I mean, I want people to be aware of those kind of things. But also another weird thing that you brought to my attention as well was that I'm hearing auto insurance has also gone up.
Oh, yes. So that is definitely what we are dealing with this year, heavy on the auto rate increases. I mean, we've seen policies go up 200%, since last year. And yeah, that was another thing. So, cars were flooded in Hurricane Ian, and people, if you have coverage on your car, then, you can file a claim for that and get, whatever the car's value was. So that's what was happening. And so we've definitely noticed a big uptick in the auto increases, which is a weird thing. You wouldn't think that would be affected by the storm, but it definitely has been.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that, because I was doing my last video I did last week, and I motivate people to go and watch it, especially if you're considering Florida, because North Florida and South Florida are like two different states. And I have it around Orlando region as one state of Florida, and then south of Orlando is like another state of Florida. And I mean, we can really talk about that when you talk about insurance too, I'm sure. But I divide that, and I was doing the comparison of cost of living in South Florida in comparison to North Florida. And the numbers are really interesting because I compared Jacksonville to the city of Miami. And in the line of transportation is 40+% higher than Jacksonville. And I was thinking to myself, that's really weird. I mean, the gasoline isn't way more expensive or anything. What was the big difference? And I had to think of a light bulb went on in my head when you said auto insurance. So I was like, well, that will jump your transportation costs if your insurance has gone up 200%. In those areas. Now, would you say that auto insurance is mostly affected more so in the south end of Florida, or is that also happening here in Northeast Florida as well?
Oh, we are absolutely seeing it here in North Florida as well. Right here in Jacksonville, St. John's, Duval County. That's actually where we've noticed more so of it. And then that's, hard to explain to people because, we're like, well, the hurricane and all that. And, even though it didn't happen here, it's the whole state of Florida is really being affected by it.
Okay. Are these auto insurance carriers, are they usually carriers that also cover home insurance as well? So they're just trying to make up for other areas where they have more risk and exposure? I don't understand how that
Yeah,
works.
I mean, so and what we've actually noticed a lot too this year is one of the things that comes to mind for people when they think about insurance is bundling, right? So I have my home and my auto with the same company, and we're really not seeing that anymore. So I think it's become way too risky for carriers to be offering both a home and auto product because it's just become so expensive. So we have truly just seen, so like a good example is Progressive. So they are probably one of our top auto carriers, and they're not writing homeowners insurance in Florida right now. So for that, that's just one example, but a lot of carriers are definitely trying to reduce their risk and not have all of their, eggs in one basket, I guess, if you want to say that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of the Progressive bundle because being here in Nocatee, we had the golf cart, the
Right.
car, the
Oh,
house, and I was encouraging and motivating my clients to get multiple quotes, and Progressive was one of them. And to my surprise, they were no longer offering that.
oh yeah.
So it's reducing your options of being able to shop for better rates. So with all that being said, Brightway Insurance is a brokerage, right? And
We
so
are.
you have the ability to shop all the offerings of coverings, whether it's home or auto, correct?
Yep. I would
Okay.
say, yeah, we have about probably 30 carriers for both home and auto that we work with. So yeah, we definitely have the capability of searching the market and, searching all available options.
Yes. So I always send my folks to you guys. If you, in the description below, I'm going to have Leah's email. That's the best way to reach out to her. I tell you, you must, a real estate professional, if it's not me, they must tell you to get an insurance quote before you purchase a home.
Yes.
Call up or email Leah. This is the address. What flood zone is it? What is the flood insurance? What is the home insurance? What does it cover? Can you give me a quote so that I understand what I'm getting myself into? You must.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you have a real estate agent that is not requiring you to do that, do away with them.
exactly. Yeah. You need to find another realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Leah, I want to thank you. You've been amazing. A lot of my customers have been super happy with you, being so responsive and giving them peace of mind that,
Oh yeah.
there's so much doom and gloom out there. I was listening to another YouTube video guy trying to get people to stop moving to Florida and move to South Carolina. And I
Oh,
mean, man, he exaggerated everything. Your property taxes are going to skyrocket and double. Well, not if it's your primary residence. It can only increase a certain amount each year. You're not going to be able to get home insurance. Well, I don't know, Leah, you just said you have 30 carriers to choose from. So yes, your insurance rates could be higher, but you do have options, correct?
absolutely. Yeah. We insure anything, old homes, new homes, homes on the water, homes in the middle of the state. So yeah.
Yeah, so you do have options, but I will tell you that, of course, depending on what region of Florida you are and what your susceptible risk and exposure is, there's going to be a dramatic difference in insurance costs. And so the beauty of today really one quick before we go over this quote, because I don't want to make this a long-winded video like last time, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but tell me the whole roof situation. Is it still more or less the same? Because every time I get to a house that's about, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, if there's a lender involved, they're like, the insurance carrier does not want to cover the home unless the roof is replaced. Is it still pretty?
It is. Yeah, we're still seeing that trend of roofs being definitely the number one question. And again, with us having multiple options, we do have carriers that are okay with older roofs, but I would say, you are going to be paying for it. So there's most likely going to be more of a surcharge than if it was a new roof. But yeah, we're still seeing 13, 14. We have some that do go up to 20 on the shingle roofs, but really at that age with just all the weather we have in Florida, it's probably going to show on some type of inspection that there's some type of lifting or curling shingles. So, it is what it is at the end of the day, but it's definitely, we are still seeing that. And another thing too is roof permits is something that has come up lately with a lot of carriers. So they are wanting to see some type of permit. A lot of carriers are actually canceling people that don't have those pulled. So that's also very important for people to know and think about when they're going to replace their roof is having something that we can show of that sort.
Yeah, and the reason for this, folks, is purely because, and I don't know, I mean, I have to say it, I'm pretty transparent, but there has been a lot of fraudulent insurance activity on roofing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they want to see permitting. They want to make sure that you're using a qualified roofing company. And again, in specific areas of Florida, it was bad, really bad insurance fraud. And this is why it's gotten really a touchy subject. And again, if you're buying a home, you want to make sure that the roof, you need to have a 4-point inspection to make sure that one of the most expensive parts of the home, the roof, was properly installed, and that if it's an older roof, that it is in good shape. And some insurance companies will require that. And the more paperwork you can show the quality of the home and the roof and all those things, then more likely you're going to get a better insurance rate.
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay.
Okay. So let's jump right into it. Is there anything else that I need to talk about before we get into the actual quote here? Am I forgetting anything else?
I don't think so. Yeah, those are really the big things I wanted to hit on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and share this quote you gave me. So again, this is a quote for a home in Ponte Vedra in the Nocatee area. It is a brand new home. And so what do we got here?
Yes.
Here.
So,
Can you actually see it?
Yep, that one is the flood quote. So it does look confusing at first, but basically, this is, and so with flood, you do have options with both the National Flood Insurance Program, FEMA, and then there are private flood carriers. So I went through and checked both. This particular home was coming in with the best rate through the National Flood Insurance Program. So that is who this quote is through. So basically, if you want to have, and so there's 2 different deductibles. So you've got a deductible if there's damage to the dwelling. So that's your first deductible. And then you're also going to be paying a deductible for your contents. So if you have damage to both your home and your things inside your home, you're paying 2 deductibles. So with the cheapest, or, with the lowest deductibles there for the year, I believe it's $864 for the year. And this is in the X flood zone. So the lower risk flood zone. What I also like to do when I do flood quotes is send people this flood zone determination. So this basically is how they map it out. It's pretty cool. It shows you where the next nearest flood zone is. So a lot of the Nocatee area, it was or is in the flood zone A, and they just built, I believe, build up the homes to where they are in the X zone essentially. But it's pretty cool. I like sending that to people so that way they can see really how close they are to being in more of that risky zone.
Yeah. So let me just ask you a quick question about this, because I'm in the Nocatee area, and basically what you're saying is that we're some of the properties are in an A zone, which is under X, or an AD. Is it an AD?
Yeah. So A is going to be the higher risk zones.
Okay. So what's under X? The next one. X is where you're not always required.
X is the bottom level.
Right. And what's the next one after that?
The next one above that. Yeah. I think it goes like AH, AE, and then A.
So basically what in Nocatee they were doing is that you were in a zone where it was still, you were less risk for flood, but they were able to grade up the property to make it an X, so you weren't required flood. And the thing that's tricky is that this home is new construction, right? I'll show the home here in a second. So what what you can do, you can also go to the St. Johns County site and you can see flood zones on resales, but it's very hard to find any information on a brand new construction. So again, another reason why you want to email Leah, especially if you're buying new construction, so that you can get this flood zone determination supplemental report. That's a lot of words, but this is awesome. And this will give you an idea of what it looks like. So maybe I should have gone backwards. So really quick, we're looking at this house, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a listed at 1.3 new construction, 4,600 square foot home. It's a big home, and it's in Coral Ridge, I believe, 80-foot lot. So this was the flood premium for that home was $864 with $250,000 coverage. Content coverage of $100,000, and the deductible on the building or the dwelling, as you call it, is $1,250. And for the contents coverage, the deductible is $1,000, and that premium is $864. And that is on a flood zone X, correct?
Correct. And I do want to mention, so through the, if you go through FEMA, the highest limits that you can get are those limits, the 250,000 and then the 100,000. So for people that want additional flood coverage, you can always get an excess flood policy, which would basically, you can add more coverage, or that's why we do like the private options as well, because the private flood markets, you can pick any dwelling coverage you want. So we do have the clients that, you know, especially if they're on the beach, they want to have, you know, they've got their $5 million home, they want to have at least a couple million in flood coverage. So we can definitely help with that too. Those are just the maximum.
Right. So there's always supplemental coverage in insurance. I mean, somebody, yeah. Okay, cool. So $864, flood zone X, brand new home. Do you want to kind of go over this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, looking at about a, you know, 4,600 square foot home, you probably range anywhere from, this is probably on the lower end of the dwelling coverage, at 785. You could probably, so you would see, you know, about a 4,600 square foot home, anywhere from 7 to 900,000 in dwelling. That can always be adjusted, of course, but, so you've got your dwelling. And all of, so the A through F, those are going to come on any homeowner's policy. Those are all the standard coverages. So you've got your other structures coverage. That's going to be, you know, if you have any sheds, fences, things like that. Your personal property, of course, anything, if you take the roof off and dump the home upside down, whatever's going to fall out is covered under that personal property coverage. Loss of use, if, you know, there's a fire and you can't live in your house anymore, if it's damaged in any way and you can't occupy the home, you've got, you know, coverage to stay in an Airbnb, hotel, things like that. And then, of course, the liability and medical payments for if anybody gets injured on your property and, you know, you need to go that route. So those are always going to be your typical standard coverages on the policy. You, of course, have hurricane, windstorm, hail coverage. I do want to mention, too, that so if there's like a windstorm, that's not a named storm. And I do like to change that. I probably should have put a different deductible, but essentially I would tell people to be aware that there is a different deductible if it's hurricane versus just like a windstorm. So it is nice because and we have those here a lot where it's just like a random hailstorm or something like that. It is nice to just have $1,000 deductible for that. But the 2% is the standard hurricane deductible. So that's you're looking at about 15,000. And then for anything else, fire, lightning, theft, vandalism, those things, that would be what the all other perils deductible is for. And then a lot of these carriers have package options. So that basically just enhances your coverage. I think the second sheet kind of goes over more of what those are, but it's basically coverages for things like jewelry and, you know, those more specific things that people like to have on their policy. So definitely an all-inclusive quote. You can add your golf cart on there if you want. You know, this carrier even does have their own flood coverage. So it's pretty cool, all the things that you can, you know, choose and customize on there.
Okay. Is this one of your popular carriers, or are you just using random?
Yeah, Southern Oak is a great carrier. I actually had my condo insured with them here in Ponte Vedra when I lived here. So yeah, they're a great A-rated carrier. We like them a lot. They're really great, especially for new construction. So, and that's the thing too, which is nice about being with us. We can help navigate. We know the carriers that are good for new construction. We know the carriers that are good for older homes. So obviously carriers have a taste of what they want. So yeah, I would say Southern Oak is definitely good for the new homes.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is just a quotation, folks. This is not an actual number by number, line by line. We're just giving you an example, purely a sample of what kind of premiums you're looking at in our area in Northeast Florida and Ponte Vedra. On a home that's around 4,000 square feet with the coverage we just mentioned, we're looking at around $1,800 premium or a little bit less. And then if you add the flood insurance, another $800. So we're looking at $2,600 annual to insure this beautiful, brand new, larger home. So $2,800. Now, I'm from South Florida. My insurance when I left 4 or 5 years ago, and I was relatively pretty close to the same distance to the beach that I am now here in Nocatee. And my insurance back then was $4,600 annual, and I'm not sure what flood was on top of that. But I've heard my neighbors in those areas are now being charged anywhere from $12,000 to $17,000 a year. So again, those larger areas, such as, let me stop sharing this here if I can, if I learn how to use this here, not presenting. So basically, in South Florida, a home where you were paying $4,600 a year, $4,600 a year, not only were you able to you're not able to insure it through Citizens potentially anymore, but the rates are tripling, quadrupling to $15,000. So that's why my phone is ringing, right? Because in Southwest Florida, they just got nailed by a hurricane, and they're still trying to sort through that mess and rebuild. Okay. Southeast Florida is also at risk because it's on the southern end of and I've seen insurance studies. I think they did a big study by Universal Insurance, and I shared that on one of my videos in Jacksonville. Hurricanes, do we get them? And the biggest risk areas were, ironically, was the Panhandle in West Florida, because they're on the Gulf Coast and they're more susceptible to hurricanes because of the warm waters, and that's creating more risk. So those areas, Southwest, Southeast, massive increases in home insurance. Now we're talking auto insurance as well, and then on top of that, we're also getting calls from the Panhandle.
And that's a tricky one too. Yeah, the Panhandle is definitely, I feel for them out there, because it's hard.
Someone near the beach told me their home insurance went up to $22,000 a year. Is that really true? Is that possible? I mean, seriously?
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, so really, I mean, a lot of our carriers don't even write the Panhandle is tricky. Not a lot of options at all. So that does not surprise me.
Yeah, my wife was like, honey, I'd really like a vacation home in the Panhandle. And I go, honey, you can go to a vacation home in the Panhandle whenever you want. You're not buying one. Forget it.
Nope.
Yeah. All right, folks. So you heard it yourself. You've got Leah's information. It will be in the description below. I'll also put it in the comments. Make sure you email her if you're considering your area. She certainly will take care of you. She's one of my favorite go-tos on my team. Northeast Florida is certainly an anomaly in Florida as far as lower interest rates. Brightway insures where? All over Florida, or what? I mean,
as long as it's in the state of Florida, we can help.
Okay, so wherever you are in Florida, she'll give you a quote. But if you're looking to purchase a home in Northeast Florida, I can advise you strongly as a real estate professional. If you're trying to keep your costs down, there are plenty of options here in Northeast Florida, and we're still somewhat close to the beach, but we're not being hammered, or at least not yet. I will admit our insurance has gone up as well over the years. I think we were paying anywhere between $1,400-$1,500. Now we're around $2,200-$2,300. I've always gotten flood insurance. I sleep well at night. I have the maximum coverage required. And I'll tell you what, it's nice to know that you are covered, because it
Oh, yeah.
can be quite a nightmare. So Leah, thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
appreciate your
Thank
time
you
as always.
guys.
Yes.
Yes, I don't want insurance to be scary for anybody, so I'm happy to help where I can. Absolutely.
Yes. As I tell everyone that doesn't want to go talk to their lender to get pre-qualified or doesn't want to be bothered, insurance is not fun. At least you have someone who's going to put it to you cut and dry on an email. It's not a
Yes.
long process. It doesn't
not.
have to be hard.
Yep.
And also she's local to this area, so she really knows this area well, which I like as well. So
Absolutely.
cool. Thanks, Leah. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sure.